Today I'm continuing to read from On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. Today is part 4. All the greatest blessings create anxiety, and fortune is never less to be trusted than when it is fairest. To preserve prosperity we need other prosperity, and to support the prayers which have turned out well, we have to make other prayers. Whatever comes our way by chance is unsteady, and the higher it rises, the more liable it is to fall. Furthermore, what is doomed to fall delights no one, so it is inevitable that life will not be just very short, but very miserable for those who acquire by great toil what they must keep by greater toil. They achieve what they want laboriously, they possess what they have achieved anxiously, and meanwhile they take no account of time that will never more return. New preoccupations take the place of the old, hope excites more hope, and ambition more ambition. They do not look for an end to their misery, but simply change the reason for it. We have found our own public honors a torment, and we spent more time on someone else's. We have stopped laboring as candidates, and we start canvassing for others. We have given up the troubles of a prosecutor and taken on those of a judge. A man stops being a judge and becomes president of a court. He has grown old in the job of managing the property of others for a salary, and then spends all his time looking after his own. Marius was released from army life to become busy in the consulship. Quintius hastens to get through his dictatorship, but he will be summoned back to it from the plough. Scipio will go against the Carthaginians before he is experienced enough for such an undertaking. Victorious over Hannibal, victorious over Antiochus, distinguished in his own consulship, and a surety for his brothers, if he had not himself forbidden it, he would have been set up beside Jupiter. But discord in the state will harass its saviour, and after, as a young man, he has scorned honours fit for the gods. At length, when old, he will take delight in an ostentatiously stubborn exile. There will always be causes for anxiety, whether due to prosperity or to wretchedness. Life will be driven on through a succession of preoccupations. We shall always long for leisure, but never enjoy it. And so, my dear Paulinus, extract yourself from the crowd, and as you have been storm-tossed more than your age deserves, you must at least retire into a peaceful harbour. Consider how many waves you have encountered, how many storms, some of which you have sustained in private life, and some you have brought upon yourself in public life. Your virtue has for long enough been shown. When you are a model of active industry, try how it will manage in leisure. The greater part of your life, certainly the better part, has been devoted to the state. Take some of your own time for yourself too. I am not inviting you to idle or purposelessness, sloth, or to drown all your natural energy in sleep and the pleasures that are dear to the masses. That is not to have repose. When you are retired and enjoying peace of mind, you will find to keep you busy more important activities than all those you have performed so energetically up to now. Indeed, you are managing the accounts of the world as scrupulously as you would another person's, as carefully as your own, as conscientiously as the state's. You are winning affection in a job in which it is hard to avoid ill will, but believe me, it is better to understand the balance sheet of one's own life than of the corn trade. You must recall the vigorous mind of yours, supremely capable of dealing with the greatest responsibilities, from a task which is certainly honourable but scarcely suited to the happy life. And you must consider that all your youthful training in the liberal studies was not directed to this end, that many thousands of measures of corn might safely be entrusted to you. You had promised higher and greater things of yourself. There will not be wanting men who are completely worthy and hard-working. Stolid pack animals are much more fit for carrying loads than thoroughbred horses. Whoever subdued their noble speed with a heavy burden, consider how much anxiety you have in submitting yourself to such a weight of responsibility. You are dealing with the human belly. A hungry people neither listens to reason nor is mollified by fair treatment or swayed by any appeals. quite recently, within a few days after Gaius Caesar died, still feeling very upset, if the dead have feelings, because he saw that the Roman people were still surviving, with a supply of food for 7 or at most 8 days. While he was building bridges with boats and playing with the resources of the empire, we faced the worst of all afflictions, even to those under siege, a shortage of provisions. His imitation of a mad foreign king doomed in his pride nearly caused the city destruction and famine and the universal collapse that follows famine. What then must those have felt who had charge of the corn supply, and when they were threatened with stones, weapons, fire, and gas, with a huge pretense they managed to conceal the great evil lurking in the vitals of the state, and assuredly they had good reason. For certain ailments must be treated while the patient is unaware of them. Knowing about their disease has caused the death of many. You must retire to these pursuits which are quieter, safer, and more important. Do you think it is the same thing whether you are overseeing the transfer of corn into granaries, unspoiled by the dishonesty and carelessness of the shippers, and taking care that it does not get damp and then ruined through heat, and that it tallies in measure and weight, or whether you take up these scared and lofty studies from which you will learn the substance of God and His will, His mode of life, His shape, what fate awaits your soul when nature lays us to rest, when released from our bodies. What is the force which supports all the heaviest elements of this world at the center, suspends the light elements above, carries fire to the highest part, and sets the stars in motion with their proper changes, and learn other things in succession which are full of tremendous marvels? You really should leave the ground and turn your thoughts to these studies. Now, while the blood is hot, you should make your way with vigor to better things. In this kind of life you will find much that is worth your study: the love and practice of the virtues, forgetfulness of the passions, the knowledge of how to live and die, and a life of deep tranquillity. Indeed, the state of all who are preoccupied is wretched, but the most wretched are those who are toiling not even at their own preoccupations, but must regulate their sleep by another's, and their walk by another's pace, and obey orders in those freest of all things, loving and hating. If such people want to know how short their lives are, let them reflect how small a portion is their own. So when you see a man repeatedly wearing the robe of office, or one whose name is often spoken in the forum, do not envy him. These things are won at the cost of life. In order that 1 year may be dated from their names, they will waste all their own years. Life has left some men struggling at the start of their careers before they could force their way to the height of their ambition. Some men, after they have crawled through 1,000 indignities to the supreme dignity, have been assailed by the gloomy thought that all their labors were but for the sake of an epitaph. Some try to adjust their extreme old age to new hopes as though it were youth, but find its weakness fails them in the midst of an effort that overtax it. It's a shameful sight when an elderly man runs out of breath while he is pleading in court for litigants who are total strangers to him, and trying to win the applause of the ignorant bystanders. It is disgraceful to see a man collapsing in the middle of his duties, worn out more by his lifestyle than by his labors. Disgraceful too is it when a man dies in the midst of going through his accounts, and his heir, long kept waiting, smiles in relief. I cannot resist telling you of an instance that occurs to me. Sextus Tyrannius was an old man known to the scrupulous and diligent, who, when he was 90, at his own request, was given retirement from his office by Gaius Caesar. He then ordered himself to be laid out on his bed and lamented by the assembled household as though he were dead. The house bewailed its old master's leisure and did not cease its mourning until his former job was restored to him. Is it really so pleasant to die in harness? That it is the feeling of many people. The desire for their work outlasts their ability to do it. They fight against their own bodily weakness, and they regard old age as a hardship on no other grounds than it puts them on the shelf. The law does not make a man soldier after 50 or a senator after 60. Men find it more difficult to gain leisure from themselves than from the law. Meanwhile, as they rob and are robbed, as they disturb each other's peace, as they make each other miserable, Their lives pass without satisfaction, without pleasure, without mental improvement. No one keeps death in view. No one refrains from hopes that look far ahead. Indeed, some people even arrange things that are beyond life. Massive tombs, dedications of public buildings, shows for their funerals, and ostentatious burials. But in truth, such people's funerals should be conducted with torches and waxed papers, as though they had lived the shortest of lives.